Welcome to VoteProPot-Cast, the award-winning cannabis news podcast brought to you by VoteProPot.com. Here are your hosts, Phil Adams, Jay Britton, and Andrew McCreadies.
How can you make your cannabis last longer through the current coronavirus lockdown? Andrew's got some tips on that. We'll hear from Jay on the latest state cannabis-related updates. And what are some of the biggest marketing challenges that companies in the cannabis industry are facing? Andrew's got some numbers on that. Hello, all you social distances out there, and welcome to VoteProPot-Cast. Those are just a few of the updates we have for you. We know we are all cooped up and very concerned about this whole coronavirus business. I mean, it's dominating everything around you, and then we're no exception. So we're here to inform and entertain you and maybe be a little bit of a diversion in your lockdown situation. Jay's going to start us off with some pretty important information. Jay, what do you got?
Well, I was just thinking about this coronavirus thing, and we've talked about the health part of it, but what about the business part of it? We know this is going to have a huge impact on the economy of the United States across the board. I mean, obviously, hotels and airlines and restaurants, everything really, while everyone's shut down. But I was thinking about how it affects the cannabis industry differently.
Okay.
And there's a couple, I'm going to throw this out at you guys. We can discuss it. The cannabis industry is different. We've talked about that top to bottom from every other industry. I mean, it's cash. It's illegal.
Highly regulated.
Illegal federally.
Aspect of it, yeah.
But on the other part of it is we've had this tremendous drop in the stock market. But before that even occurred, many of the public cannabis companies' stocks had already taken a huge hit since 2019.
2019 was a tough year for
most of them are down 75% before this shit hit the fan. So, they're really teetering on the edge. We've talked about MedMen. We've talked about all this stuff. So, we've talked about that cannabis companies can't claim deductions, right? Standard deductions off their taxes.
Off the federal taxes.
So the question is, what is this coronavirus? If it goes on for 3 months or 4 months, what is that going to do to the cannabis industry? How much harder is it going to hit that than even other, airline industries, hotels? But they're so huge and they've been around for so long. They're going to get bailouts. We all know that's coming. What's going to happen with these cannabis companies?
Well, there is some talk of some bailouts for the hemp industry, for all these hemp farmers.
Really?
Right.
I've heard there's some.
Okay.
There's some
that's
noise being made.
That's true, but I'm talking about, these companies, vertical, they're brand new. They've been in business for a couple of years. They're struggling like shit anyway.
They dumped millions in. They're not pulling the money out.
Right. Their stocks have plummeted up before this even happened. And I own a little bit of stock, and I looked at it, cannabis stock, and I looked at
Don't do that.
Friday, and I was like, fuck.
That's not a good idea. That's probably not a good idea. Probably your 401k.
Don't look, right?
Just don't even look at it. That's probably a good idea. Just,
I'm looking at about 20 more years before I can retire now.
Right. You're old.
Don't even look at the number. Just understand that it's down and leave it at that. You don't need to know how down.
Well, Phil, didn't you say that to me the other day?
Yeah. I'm not looking at it.
Right. Yeah, you said you're not even looking.
And even mine, I mean, I hold a large amount of Amazon stock, and that's been doing a lot better than some because it's,
Oh, yeah, because everybody's buying all their shit on Amazon.
People buying online. So, so I'm at least got that as partially.
Toilet paper sales alone on Amazon.
Right. Well, they're out now. So I guess my question is, do you think there's going to be kind of a thinning of the herd as a result of this coronavirus?
Well, okay, in all business.
But a lot of those businesses are going to get bailouts and they're going to survive because they have deep pockets.
Small guys.
The economy has been so great for the last 4 or 5 years that a lot of the companies will make it through this, even if, they take a huge hit. But you know what? A lot of these cannabis companies aren't in a position to come back. I mean, it could just do them in.
Well,
yeah.
It will, and then they'll reform. The question is not whether this is going to have an impact on the cannabis economy or the economy in general. It is. It's already having it, and it's going to get worse. The question is, how quickly does it bounce back? And
exactly.
you know,
That's a good
now
point.
this crisis financially is likely to be worse than the 2008-2009 financial crisis.
Yep.
It's a different type of crisis.
It's a different type of crisis. That one was just people managing things poorly, you know. And like you said, Andrew, the problem with the cannabis industry in 2019 and up until now has been that they've poured money into something and managed it poorly, one way or another. So those entrepreneurs will be shaken out. Some of them will reform. Some of them will get back. But as far as the economy, and I think they're going to be dependent on how well the economy in general comes back. And we'll see. You know, there's like we were talking about earlier, the White House and Congress have been working together and with the state governments to kind of mitigate, the big businesses who hire a lot of people, the small businesses who hire most of the people,
right,
and individuals. If what I'm reading in this pending legislation is correct, you're not even going to have to do anything. You're going to get a direct deposit of a couple of thousand, and then another one, depending on where you are on the income scale. It's you're not even going to have to do anything. It's going to show up in your bank account.
Yeah, but what about these bailouts? They're coming from the federal government. The federal government is not going to bail out cannabis companies. It's not going to happen.
No. Well, it's not. I think the bailout is a.
Well, they're going to do something to help, whether it's tax credits.
They're going to help the consumer, and the consumer is going to help. It's not going to be a direct bailout. No.
Here's the good news. There's a lot of talk in the industry that cannabis dispensaries should be classified as a essential, like a essential business, like a grocery store or a pharmacy. I believe that the demand isn't going down. If anything, these people sequestered, demand's going up. I just got a text from my local dispensary saying, stop the phone-in orders. We're overwhelmed. We can't take it anymore. Go to Weed Maps, order on Weed Maps, and do the curbside pickup. We can't. They're only allowing 2 people in the dispensary at a time. That's why I think that I don't know if the cannabis industry is going to get hurt, because I still think the demand is out there, and as long as they can stay open, they'll have sales. Matter of fact, I think they'll have great sales. And the other fact is, once you're as a grower, once you got the plants in the ground, just because there's an epidemic going around doesn't mean they're going to stop growing. So the problem is having the people show up to process it and grow it and maintain it. Now, if you can do that, and also for growing, it's not a huge number of people, involved in that.
No,
so I don't think the growing operations and the people in the cannabis industry, we're dedicated, man. They're fucking dedicated. They're not, I think the cannabis
they've gone
industry
through worse times than this.
I think they're going to come through this. I think they're definitely going to. Well, my point being was just that I think that the cannabis industry is going to make it through. Now, some of the small operators, I don't know, but that's true about all business. I think some of the small people they're not going to be able to last. Because really the word on the street, the people I've talked to, and I have some family members work for the government, and the word that I really believe from people that I think are really credible are saying sort of plan on being sequestered until May.
Through May, probably, at least. Yeah.
I would say at least through April, maybe through May. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what they're saying.
Now, I don't know that can be sustainable. I'll believe it when I see it, that people are going to stay in, shelter in place through 2 more months. I don't know.
Coming from the restaurant industry and how so many restaurants really are just staying alive month by month, or they're like 1 or 2 months, they're just barely just hanging on.
Most.
Those guys, a lot of those guys, none of them are going to last through this. They're not going to be able to take a couple weeks, let alone a couple months.
It depends on the level of assistance they get from Congress, and
that's going to be tough.
It's going to be tough. Now, one of the things is that they've mentioned in this, and it may work for the dispensary industry as well, that if we'll give you this money as a loan to the small businesses just to keep your liquidity going. And that's really what it is, a question of liquidity. The business will be there when things settle down and things come back. Everybody will come back. The question is, can they stay afloat? And they need liquidity to do that. And so the bill that's being talked about today in Congress is to give them money as a loan, but if you use any amount of that money that you use for payroll to keep people employed, you don't have to pay back.
Right.
So that's going to help the people. It's going to help the employees. I think that's a good feature. If you use it just to shore up your business, okay, call that a loan, and then you will have to pay that back.
If you enjoy the show, we'd love to hear from you. Send us your thoughts at VoteProPot.com/contact or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com, and please give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. If you'd like to be part of the show, call our message line at 240-257-2441. Tell your friends about us and be sure to like, follow and share us on social media. Just go to Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn and Twitter and do a search for Vote Pro Pot. Now, back to the boys.
It's kind of funny in a way that marijuana has gone from being legal to being illegal to being decriminalized, legal for medical, legal for adult. And now in Los Angeles County, it's considered essential. I mean, we've gone the whole spectrum here.
Here.
This is according to the New York Post. Los Angeles County has, as part of their stay-at-home emergency order by Governor Newsom, by the Los Angeles County Commissioner, and the cities within the borders. There's a lot of cities within Los Angeles County that are their own incorporated cities. At any rate, they've shut down all non-essential retail businesses effective at least through April 19th. Now, and if you're not in this, but they've also decided that cannabis dispensaries are essential.
Right up there with hospitals, man.
Well, yeah.
It's if you're going to call it medicine.
Yeah,
that's right. You got to call it medicine. You got to treat it as medicine. But I wonder if there was somebody in the LA commissioner's office, county commissioner's office, pitching this, we got this lockdown. This doesn't apply to weed, does it? You know what I'm talking?
Well, you know what it is? So many people that now who are in positions of power are pro-pot.
Oh, yeah. And I'm sure the county commissioner says, oh, no, now,
and a lot of them are in the closet.
Now you do understand that I say I only use this for medicinal purposes.
Yeah, but one of the things you don't mention,
listen to me when I'm talking to you, boy. That's a joke, son.
the tax revenue that dispensaries pour into to California.
I mean, that's a good point.
They're paying rates so much higher than every other business. And their fees and their licensing and all that. So yeah, I think they're looking at that too. Let's be honest.
And they would have to, those dispensaries in LA, under that kind of pressure and without being considered essential, they'd go out of business, wouldn't they? I mean, that would just crush them.
Speaking of the coronavirus being locked down, I've got an article here on how to make your cannabis last longer. So apparently now they're saying that some people might be locked in till May. You got to make your stash sort of last as long as you can.
Yeah.
So what they're saying, they're saying now people are definitely going to be stockpiling. That's another thing. You got to worry about your local dispensary getting sold out.
Yeah, you think they're out of toilet paper,
or your black market dealer getting sick. I mean, that'd be horrible. Anyway, so what they're saying, so people are going to be stockpiling it. So that's obviously one way you can get through this. But one thing they say you definitely one you can do is make edibles out of it, especially like the shake and some trim you got.
Yep.
Because
you get much trim these days.
Well, there's a
sounds like a personal problem.
But edibles going to give you more buzz for your buck. So you take your low quality swag and make some edibles out of it. That's a good way to do it. The other thing you definitely want to do is store it properly. So you want to be in an airtight container with a hydro pack in it.
Good.
Here's another thing you can do. A lot of people are taking the previously vaped cannabis. So a lot of people vape flower, and they have these packs, pens, vaporizers. They have like what they call an oven, a little box. So you just put the flower in there, close it, and it vaporizes it. But then what comes out is you still have a fiber. It doesn't burn it. It just steams it, I guess you could say.
Right.
But anyway, it vaporizes it. So you can take that, and since it goes through the oven, it sort of gets decarboxylated. So you take that, and you can make edibles out of it. And that's one way you can get more buzz for your buck.
So there's still plenty of THC and CBD and whatnot in there?
But
Okay.
so definitely that's what, store it properly.
Yeah, stretch that.
You can definitely also, you might want to stick to a schedule, sort of ration it out, go, okay, only so much a day. If you want to say like, a gram and a half a day and that's it, And the other thing you can do is buy some CBD flower hemp and mix it with your THC flower, and it will definitely make it last longer. You'll add a bunch of cool terpenes and some CBD to it and really get a nice full effect.
Yeah.
So other than that, how are you guys handling being sequestered and your cannabis?
Well, I'm pretty good so far. I mean, I only have a couple of hits a day. I'll have a hit, hang out for a while, have another one later on. Later on, I'll have hit off the vape pen. I've got enough in my carts, and I've got a little bottle of tincture if I need to refer to that, and I've got enough flour to keep me going. At least for another couple months. I don't go through it that quickly. And so I think I'm in pretty good shape.
So you just do a couple hits a day?
Yeah. No, I'm not a wuss. I'm a microdoser. It is a strategy. It's a strategery.
All right, here's our state update for the week.
State thing.
Start with Alabama. We try to keep everybody up to date on what's going on in your state.
Roll Tide.
State lawmakers approved legislation last week that seeks to regulate patients' access to select medical cannabis products. Senators voted 22-11 in favor of SB 165 state bill, which licenses dispensaries to provide qualified patients with non-herbal cannabis preparations, such as marijuana-infused tablets or pills. So Alabama is one of those southern states that doesn't want you to smoke it. It's not good.
Didn't Florida try that at one point?
Yeah.
It didn't last, did it?
The bill now awaits consideration by members of the House. Last year, members of Senate approved medical cannabis access legislation, but that effort was opposed by the House. Ultimately, lawmakers agreed upon appointing a study commission to make recommendations on the issue.
Jay's doing the finger quotes.
Because that's what politicians always do when they want to kick the can down the road. We'll set up a commission to study it, right?
Yeah, blue ribbon panel.
So there's a bunch of politicians get in a room and smoke a bunch of weed?
Yeah. Talk about how they're not going to let it be legal. That's right. Right.
Kind of study. Okay, now we're going to do some shatter. Tomorrow we're going to do some.
But nobody else can smoke it.
What are we talking about again, man?
So in January, Alabama Attorney General Steve Marshall wrote a letter to state lawmakers urging them to reject the commission's recommendations, opining that medicalization is, quote, preempted, unquote, federal anti-drug laws and it exacerbates opioid misuse. Wow.
That was easy for you to say.
He's on board, huh? So that's Alabama. Hey, guys, I got one from your state, Maryland.
Maryland.
Yeah.
Maryland. Yeah.
So this is right up your alley there, Phil.
Expungement?
Yep. House lawmakers have voted overwhelmingly in favor of legalization, facilitating the automatic expungement of past low-level marijuana-related convictions.
I love it, man.
Isn't it great? Legislator, yeah, Andrew's that affects you, doesn't it, Andrew? Andrew, you're going to get expunged. Legislators decided 116-15 in support of House Bill 83, which mandates all court records and police records relating to any charge of possession of marijuana, where marijuana is the only charge. Oops, that negates you, Andrew. Anyway.
Yeah, the lewd and lascivious conduct is still on the record.
Yeah, pissing in public, exposing himself. Yeah,
I want to talk about the elephant in the room. Yes, I did got brought up on charges for possession of a small amount of marijuana at a point in my adult life. But charges were dropped.
Okay. All right. Good
There
lawyer,
was no
good
merit
lawyer.
to them.
Well, no, I hired the former state's attorney.
Well, that helps.
To defend me.
Earlier this week, House members voted 93-44 in favor of separate legislation, HB 550, which reclassifies offenses involving the possession of up to 1 ounce of cannabis from being a criminal offense to a civil violation. So Way to go, Maryland.
Yeah, and all of those people who are in jail serving time for that, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to?
No, they didn't get into that yet. Yeah, right.
Okay,
Exactly.
Because I think just as big a crime is to allow people to sit in prison for something that isn't even illegal anymore and never should have been in the first place.
Right.
Last Prisoner Project. That's right.
So they're in jail for selling weed to pay their bills, and meanwhile the government's taking tax dollars from selling weed to pay their bills.
Yeah, right. Okay.
How is that right?
All right, next is New Mexico.
All right.
New Mexico officials are asking the state Supreme Court to determine whether or not medical cannabis products are exempt from gross receipts taxes. So just like prescription drugs.
Right.
So basically, it's made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court. The filing stems from a 2014 case when licensed medical cannabis producer Sacred Garden asked the tax department for a refund on the gross receipt tax for the company paid that year. So that one's made its way all the way up to New Mexico Supreme Court. That's an important one. They're basically saying, look, we're medicine. All the other pharmaceutical companies don't have to pay this tax. So why should we? So we'll see where that goes. That's an interesting one. I'm going to keep my eye on that one. And finally, got a story here out of Marijuana Business Daily. Washington State, and this relates to the whole virus deal. Washington State is allowing licensed cannabis dispensaries with medically compliant products to provide curbside service to patients in order to, quote, promote social distancing, unquote. According to the State Liquor and Cannabis Board, dispensaries can temporarily sell to qualified patients outside of their business, but within the licensed property line.
Okay.
However, dispensaries may not operate drive-through windows, which that makes no sense to me. What's the difference?
I don't get that.
Yeah, I'm not really sure what that deal is. So Washington is on the ball, trying to keep everybody safe with their social distancing so you can order your weed. And Andrew talked about that earlier. You can go to Weed Mouse, but you can pull up to the curbside and they bring you a bag.
Right.
So there you go. That's your state update for this week.
Excellent.
You can drive through the parking lot, roll down your window, and they'll just throw it in the car.
They
as you
just
drive
toss
by.
it in. Yeah.
Right. Already burning. No. Well, how do we safely get high during this whole coronavirus pandemic? Well, funny you should ask that. And notice how I skipped over the part where you didn't ask that?
Yeah. It was coming up.
It's coming up. You were thinking about asking.
It was on the tip of my tongue, bro.
Because a lot of people are asking that. Well, this is from an article in Rolling Stone. Just some tips and some things to consider. One of them is that the very kind of community nature of cannabis consumption. Now, it says, while no longer synonymous with hazy sessions among friends, cannabis consumption is heavily rooted in community and sharing. It's a social thing.
Very social.
Yeah.
It's like drinking, yeah.
It's always been kind of central to, this whole cannabis culture.
You share joints, you pass the peace
Now,
pipe.
this is no different with alcohol. People pass around a bottle. Couple of differences. Alcohol has, germ-killing properties. So you can pass a bottle of vodka. You're not going to pass any germs. Generally speaking.
But in alcohol, that's the exception, not the rule. But in cannabis, it's the rule,
It's the rule, not the exception. Right. Now, I share my wine with you, but we're not drinking out of the same glass. We could be.
We
could do that whole loop the arms thing, but that
you
would
hurt
be
my feelings, man.
Well, we normally just get 2 straws.
But while everyone is sheltering in place, there are a couple of things that should consider about coronavirus and getting high. One of them is smoking. Now, if you're concerned about being sick, even if it's just the flu, smoking does exacerbate and irritate your lungs,
especially the coronavirus.
Sure,
exactly. And if you're concerned about that, the last thing you want to do is you want to. Now, it does have certain anti-inflammatory effects, but that's completely blown out by the smoking. You don't want to smoke things, or you want to consider whether you want to smoke things if you're concerned about any respiratory problems.
Right. So edibles and tinctures are great. Now, what about vaping,
exactly
Bill?
Right.
Do you think vaping is still bad, but not as?
It doesn't say whether it's as bad, but it's still considered. Don't do it. It's still irritates and has potentially inflames your lungs and your
Especially
throat, etc.
Well, yeah, especially if you get a tainted vape cart.
Well, hopefully we're past all that.
Coronavirus and a tainted vape cart.
You're fucked.
Yeah, you're playing with fire there. But hopefully that whole tainted thing is in the rear view. I'm hoping, and I expect that that's the case. But yes, edibles, oils, tinctures. There are recipes for canna butter, brownies, cookies, treats. Andrew, you've got 1,000,001 really good recipes for all of those things, and gummies.
There's a ton of recipes online, and maybe that might be a good way to spend some time, because some of my friends that I've talked to, that's one of the issues. They have cabin fever. They got to find something to do, and I know I've talked to some friends and actually, quite frankly, I had some friends call me for bread recipes because they want to make their own bread. Well, they're sitting at home, might as well, why not make bread? And actually, what I'm suggesting people find a really good English muffin recipe, because you don't bake them, you cook them on a griddle, which is kind of a fun thing to do.
Yeah,
or
you get that little
bread,
brown, yeah.
There's a lot of things, and cooking gives something to do. It's also a wonderful opportunity if you have children to teach them how to cook. Give them some
and you can reap the anti-inflammatory benefits of the CBD THC combination without the irritant of smoking. So you can ingest it that way, and you can benefit from it. So but the question of, does cannabis have any direct therapeutic effects on coronavirus? As far as we know, no. And that's either in to help or to hinder. It doesn't seem to affect. We don't have any information that it affects it either way.
Right.
Yeah.
There's they
no data to support
cannabis.
Either way.
They're not doing any cannabis research, let alone cannabis is associated.
Little
with
low on the priority scale, I'm sure.
I read an article in the 420intel.com this week about
good site.
The two numbers that are. It is a great site, especially for industry people.
Yeah.
The two numbers that should cause some concern to people in the cannabis industry, and that is, it found that over 35% of cannabis consumers. Now, this was done in Canada, which I think is pretty much in line with the United States.
Yeah.
35% said that when they got home from the dispensary, they really couldn't tell you exactly what brand they bought, because they're just not brand loyal, and brand has very little to do with their purchase decision.
Well, this is right up Phil's alley. He kind of does it for a living, but don't you think part of that, Phil, is that these brands aren't popular? They're not advertising on TV and the radio. It's not Coca-Cola and Pepsi,
Well, that's true. I mean, they're not allowed.
Right. But I'm just saying, there's not a name recognition thing going on.
And also, when people go, a lot of people, when they go to the dispensary, it's all about buzz for the buck.
True.
It's what's the THC level? I know a lot of bud tenders, when they're showing you different strains, they always point out, here, this is like 32% THC, this is 19%, yada, yada, yada. And and the bottom line, the price.
Sure.
A lot of people. That's why a lot of dispensaries bottle or package their own flower under their brand name, under their dispensary name, and that seems to be really popular. And then some dispensaries just do the deli style, where they just have a big jar of it and they just weigh it out right in front of you, which is really the best way.
Sure. Huh. So do you think that's the biggest selling point, Andrew? Like when you've interviewed and talked to a lot of people.
Yeah, well, right now I think is
THC the level.
Right,
do you think that's
right? And also, some people, they really want vape carts, or they want an edible, or they want
as far as flower goes, though, you think it's really.
Yeah, I think it's just THC and the price, man. That's what is the deciding factor for the majority of people buy. Now, there's some people, obviously, because that probably are brand loyal, but it's not that huge. And is it worth it for these manufacturers to invest all this money in marketing, or how do you invest in marketing and how do you effectively invest in marketing and for these companies?
That's an interesting question. I think when it comes to just the most prevalent product, the flower, people aren't loyal to brands as much as they are to strains. And they're going to find the strain that they like, that works for them.
Right.
They're going to, and bud tenders are going to recommend strains based on what kind of benefit they want to get from it. What's going to be marketable are the ancillary products, the vape pens, the bombs, the tinctures, and the dispensaries themselves. And a lot of them are chains.
Right.
And so, I have a kind of a dispensary brand that I'm loyal to, mostly because it's close and mostly because I just like the bud tenders there.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's where I go. So there's, when it comes to just manufactured product, you're absolutely right. It's a real challenge to get any kind of brand building going on these, just by the nature of, cannabis is still walking that line between legal and illegal. It's kind of in both worlds.
The restrictions on where they can advertise alone. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's hard to have a positive brand image when the industry has such a negative image in general for so many people, I think. But there's also another interesting number. Now, that was 35% of cannabis consumers in Canada couldn't tell you what brand they bought. But in the United States, 37% of U.S. consumers are more likely to buy a cannabis product that is endorsed by a celebrity.
Is that right?
That doesn't surprise me when I stop and think about it, actually. It's kind of the American way. The pop culture thing.
Now, what we just saw Whoopi Goldberg. She did a THC product, a cannabis product to treat menstrual cramps for women and for men, I guess. And
certain men,
for certain men, right? A lot of these celebrities are it's all brand deals. It's all just trademark deals. I mean, or not trademark deals, licensing deals. And sometimes they work, but from what I understand, some of them aren't working out that well. Maybe, I don't know, as far as sales are concerned, but the deal that for the celebrities, sometimes some of these celebrities are having problems. Now, but then you have celebrities but there's the exception to the rule, and that's Jim Belushi.
Jim Belushi, absolutely.
Right. He gets his hands in the dirt. He's just not a figurehead. That's his farm, and he's the president of the company. Man, he's like the real deal. Not only
isn't also the case that a lot of celebrities are tending to put their names on really high end stuff that's not.
Well, you got to pay the celebrity.
Mass consumption.
Right? Yeah. You can't afford to pay a celebrity for a cheap product. For the for the generic brand. You can afford it.
Correct.
Or maybe someone, maybe like a B-list guy.
Yeah, but Americans are very much kind of celebrity worshipers,
exactly,
hero worshipers.
And the obvious ones, Snoop Dogg is probably the number one choice if you wanted to brand a cannabis product. Snoop would be the best because he's not only well known for it, but he's a great spokesperson and he's a talented guy and he comes across great on the screen.
Yeah.
And Willie Nelson, that's another big one. I mean,
and it's good to know that he's got his mind on his money and his money on his mind. So
now, Snoop Dogg and Willie, I think, have a lot more to do with those companies than just using their name and showing up for a meeting every now and then and cashing the check. I think they have a lot more to do with it. They're actually involved in it's their business.
Well, Willie said he's their product tester too. Apparently,
yeah. Of course, Willie would.
And I like this one. This is a good one.
So, if you're in the cannabis industry, how do you best spend your marketing dollar? Do you try to get a celebrity?
Great
question. What about the small companies? There's no way they're getting a celebrity unless they take them on, unless they give them equity in the business.
Well, they could come get the hosts of the VotePro-Podcast. They work cheap,
right? Or you can get celebrity impersonators, but I don't know if that's going to work out too well.
Thank you very much.
We would love to hear the accounts of anybody who has contracted the illness and recovered, or if you are, still in recovery, chances are you will recover, and we're glad to be able to say that. But we would love to hear your experiences. Check us out at VoteProPot.com. Contact us or send us an email at podcast@VoteProPot.com.
And we have a message line, 240-257-2441. Leave us a message and we'll play it on the show.
So there's so much we would like to discuss, but we just don't have time. So we do a lot of information sharing on our social networking platforms. So go to Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter and do a search for Vote Pro Pot.
man sits in a prison cell, has been sitting there 10 years. The judge, he brought the gavel down, the jury shed no tears. He can't support his family, his children do without. He's been inside so long now, he don't remember being out. What's he in for anyway, with the murderers and pimps? Cops caught him with a joint one day, he's been in there ever since. Oh, how long must this go on? This ain't justice, it's just plain wrong. Oh, it's just plain wrong. A man sits in his mansion on the Caribbean shore. He got strippers in the hot tub, a machete in the drawer. He's got more money than Elon, got more weapons than Iran. He got rich the old-fashioned way by selling contraband. And everything he has, he owes to the DEA. The last thing any drug lord wants is prohibition to go away. Oh, how long must this go on? This ain't justice, it's just plain wrong. Glass of wine with a meal, valerian root at bedtime, or some tea with chamomile. Sugar on your cereal, a fine hand-rolled cigars. Things no one thinks twice about, they just are what they are. Pep up with some ginseng, relax with a beer. Pop a couple Xanax and let them melt away your fears. Lots of stuff that's legal makes you feel a certain way, but smoke a little sativa and they'll haul your ass away to stay. Marijuana's bad for you. It'll fry your brain like eggs in a pan. It's what evil people do. So that gives us the right, they say, to ban its use and sale. So don't you let us catch you, son, or you might end up in jail. Just remember, America, when we lock you in your cells, that we're doing this for your own good, to save you from yourselves. Oh, how long must this go on? This ain't justice, well, it's just plain wrong. Oh, I said this ain't justice, but it's just plain